My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 28 years old, and I live alone in a house that feels older than my regrets. It sits on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, where the streets thin out and the city quietly gives up trying to look alive. The house has seen better decades, maybe better people too. The paint peels in tired strips, the floorboards complain under every step, and the back door never quite latches no matter how many times I promise myself I'll fix it. I never do. I work as a delivery driver for a small logistics company, the kind no one notices unless something goes wrong. Mostly night shifts, long ones, the kind that stretch your body thin and hollow you out slowly, leaving you too tired to think and too awake to rest properly. I spend my nights navigating rain-slick streets, dropping off packages to strangers who barely glance at my face, their lives pressing forward while mine idle somewhere between red lights and coffee cups. The job isn't glamorous. It doesn't need to be. It pays the bills, and in a city like Portland, that's sometimes all a man can ask for. I don't have family nearby, no close friends either. Just routine, just repetition. Coming home to an empty house, cracking open a beer, letting the couch swallow me whole until the next shift drags me back out into the rain. That Tuesday night was supposed to be no different. I'd pulled a double. My back ached in that deep, burning way that doesn't fade when you stretch. My eyes felt scraped raw, every blink a reminder that I'd been awake too long. By the time I parked outside my house, it was close to 2 a.m. The rain had been coming down in sheets all evening, turning the streets into shimmering mirrors under the streetlights. Everything looked distorted, blurred, like the city itself was tired of being seen clearly. I sat in the truck for a moment longer than necessary, hands resting on the steering wheel, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. The quiet outside felt heavy, almost expectant. Eventually, I grabbed my keys and stepped out into the rain. It soaked through my jacket instantly, cold seeping into places I didn't have the energy to fight. The porch creaked beneath my weight as I climbed the steps. I fumbled with the lock, fingers stiff, mind already drifting toward the hot shower waiting inside. The door stuck, like it always did. I twisted the key harder, muttering under my breath, and finally it gave way. Inside, the house smelled like damp wood and stale coffee. Familiar, unchanged. I kicked off my muddy boots, left them by the door like a problem for tomorrow, and tossed my jacket over a chair. The silence settled around me, thick and unchallenged. Without thinking, I headed straight down the hallway toward the bathroom. I flipped on the light and pushed the door open, and stopped. There was a woman standing in front of my mirror. For a split second, my brain refused to accept it. Exhaustion does strange things to perception. Hallucinations seemed impossible after the night I'd had. But she didn't disappear. She was real, drenched, her dark hair plastered to her shoulders, water dripping onto the tiled floor in uneven rhythms. She wore thin clothes, a faded t-shirt and jeans soaked through so completely they clung to her like a second skin. Her posture was defensive, arms wrapped around herself as if she were trying to hold herself together. The harsh yellow light made her skin look pale, almost fragile. Her eyes were red-rimmed, swollen in a way that told me she'd been crying long before the rain started. She looked about 30, slim, worn down by something heavier than weather. My heart slammed into my chest. I started, my voice coming out sharper than I meant. What the hell? She spun around. Fear flooded her face instantly, not surprise, terror. She pressed herself back against the sink as if trying to melt into the wall. "Don't," she whispered, her voice trembling, barely audible over the hum of the fluorescent bulb. "Please, I just need a few minutes." Every instinct in my body screamed to react, to yell, to demand answers, to reach for my phone and call the police. Portland had its share of break-ins. I'd heard the stories. Worse ones, too. But then something clicked. I recognized her. The convenience store, last week. She'd been huddled outside in the rain, thin jacket zipped up to her chin, hands shaking as she counted out coins for a cheap sandwich. I remembered the way she avoided eye contact, like she already expected rejection. I slipped her an extra sandwich without thinking. She must have seen it on my face, the recognition, because her shoulders slumped, though the fear never fully left her eyes. "I'm sorry," she stammered, hugging herself tighter. "I didn't mean to. The back door was unlocked. It was raining so hard and I had nowhere else to go. Please, I can leave right now." She was shivering. Her lips had a faint blue tint, and the way she clutched her sleeves made her look impossibly small. "How did you even know this was my house?" I asked, my voice steadier now, though my pulse still raced. She hesitated. "I followed you," she admitted quietly. "Not in a creepy way. I just remembered your face. You were kind to me. I lost my job, got evicted. Someone stole my bag while I was sleeping on a bench. Tonight, the rain, it was too much. I swear I'm not dangerous." Her words spilled out like she was afraid silence would doom her. I rubbed my temples. Calling the police felt wrong. Sending her back into that rain felt worse. "All right," I said finally. The words surprised us both. "You can stay one night." Her eyes widened, tears spilling over. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. As I handed her a towel and stepped out to make tea, I had no idea that this moment, this single choice, was about to pull me into a storm that would change everything. The house didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. Even after the shower stopped running and the kettle clicked off, there was a tension in the air that refused to settle. It sat in the corners of the rooms, pressed itself into the walls, lingered in the spaces between breaths. The rain kept coming, steady and unrelenting, like it was trying to remind us that nothing about this night was finished yet. When she finally emerged from the bathroom, she looked different. Not healed, not whole, just less broken by the cold. Her hair was still damp, curling slightly at the ends where the towel hadn't quite dried it. She'd wrapped the towel around her shoulders instead of her waist, clutching it closed like armor. Color had returned to her cheeks, faint but noticeable, and the trembling in her hands had eased enough that she could stand without bracing herself against the doorframe. She paused there, uncertain, eyes scanning the small living room like she wasn't sure she was allowed to occupy the space. "Tea's on the table," I said, gesturing toward the kitchen. I tried to sound normal, casual, like I hadn't just let a stranger into my life through a door that didn't latch. She nodded and shuffled forward, every step careful, measured. The chair scraped softly against the linoleum as she sat, wrapping her hands around the mug like it was the only solid thing in the world. Steam curled upward between her fingers. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I busied myself at the stove, pulling out what little food I had: ground beef, onions, garlic, a can of soup. The sizzle of meat in the pan filled the silence, grounding in a way conversation wasn't yet. Cooking gave my hands something to do while my mind tried to catch up with reality. "Thank you," she said eventually. Her voice was steadier now, but still fragile, like glass that hadn't shattered only because it hadn't been touched again. "For everything." I glanced over my shoulder. She was staring into the mug, watching the tea move slightly as her hand shook. "Yeah, well, let's start simple." I turned down the heat and looked at her properly. "What's your name?" "Claire," she replied. "Claire Thompson." She hesitated before adding, "I'm 30. "Ethan," I said. "Ethan Cole." It felt strange exchanging names like this, like we were meeting under normal circumstances, like there wasn't a storm still clinging to her clothes and 1,000 unasked questions hanging between us. I plated the food and set it in front of her. She stared at it for a second too long before picking up the fork. Her first bite was small, cautious, as if she didn't trust the food to stay. She chewed slowly, deliberately, like eating was something she had to relearn. "You said you'd tell me everything," I said quietly, sitting across from her. "Why my house?" She swallowed and set the fork down. Her fingers traced the rim of the mug again, buying time. "Okay," she said finally. "A few months ago, I was working as an executive assistant at a tech firm downtown, Green Tech. I was good at it. I liked the structure, the predictability." She paused, breath hitching. "My boss trusted me. That was the problem. I listened as she spoke, flipping meat, plating food, but mostly watching her. The way her eyes went distant when she talked about the office. The way her shoulders tightened when she said his name, Harland. The way the words flattened when she described discovering the missing money, the forged emails, the way the truth turned against her the moment she tried to do the right thing. It didn't sound like a story she'd just come up with. It sounded like one she'd lived with long enough to memorize. When she finished, the kitchen felt heavier, like her words had settled into the walls alongside the damp. "So you ended up on the streets," I said quietly, sitting across from her. She nodded. Her sleeve slipped back slightly, and I saw the bruises on her wrist. She noticed my gaze and pulled the fabric down without comment. That's when I knew. This wasn't something I could step away from cleanly. That night, I told her she could stay longer until she got her feet under her. I told myself it was temporary, practical, but the truth was simpler. I couldn't send her back into the rain. Morning came quietly. Gray light filtered through the blinds, soft and indifferent. For a few seconds after waking, I forgot she was there. Then I heard the faint creak of the spare room door, and reality came rushing back in. We shared coffee in near silence. She wore one of my old hoodies, sleeves too long, hem brushing her thighs. It looked better on her than it ever had on me. I left for my shift just before noon. That's when I noticed the black SUV. It sat across the street, engine idling, windows dark, watching. I told myself I was imagining it. By the time I came home that evening, I knew I wasn't. The same SUV rolled past my house as I turned onto the block. Two men stood talking to my neighbor, Mrs. Harland, their posture too alert, their smiles too forced. Inside, Claire was pacing. "They're here," she whispered. That's when she told me about the USB. And that's when I understood something important. Letting her in hadn't just been kindness. It had been a choice. And choices once made don't let you go easily. Fear doesn't arrive loudly. It settles. It slips into the pauses between words, the way someone checks a window twice, the way silence starts to feel too intentional. After Claire told me about the USB, about the men circling, about how close danger really was, the house stopped feeling like shelter and started feeling like a fragile lie we were both pretending to believe in. I locked the door. Then I checked it again. Claire sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. Her breathing was shallow, like she was afraid that even the sound of air moving in and out of her lungs might give her away. "Proof," I said slowly. "You said you have proof." She nodded without looking at me. "Not here. I hid it. Train station locker downtown." The words landed heavy. That was the moment the story crossed a line in my head. This wasn't just about compassion anymore. This wasn't just letting someone sleep on a cot and drink tea until the rain stopped. This was danger with a shape, with teeth. Outside, an engine revved and faded into the distance. Claire flinched. I sat across from her and forced myself to breathe evenly. "Is there anything else you haven't told me?" I asked. "Because if this comes back on me, I need to know what I'm standing in." She finally looked up. Her eyes were glassy, rimmed red not just from exhaustion but from guilt. "No," she said. "I swear, that USB has everything. If it goes public, Harlan's finished. He knows it. That's why they're looking for me." Her hands shook as she spoke. I thought about my life before this night. The quiet, the emptiness, the way days blurred together without leaving marks. I thought about how easy it would have been to say, "This isn't my problem," but it was already too late for that. "All right," I said. Her head snapped up. "I know someone, Rick, old college friend, detective. He's clean. If anyone can help without tipping the wrong people off, it's him." For the first time since she'd told me the truth, something like hope flickered across her face. "Will you really call him?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. For us, I said. The word surprised me as soon as it left my mouth. We didn't use the front door. The rain had started again, soft at first, then heavier, like the city was trying to wash itself clean. We slipped out the back, hoods up, the truck engine rumbling too loudly in the quiet neighborhood. I checked the mirrors constantly. 3 blocks out, headlights appeared behind us, hung back too long, followed one turn too closely. Hold on, I muttered. I took a sharp turn at a yellow light, then another, heart pounding, breath shallow. The car followed briefly, then disappeared into downtown traffic. Neither of us spoke until we parked a block from the sandwich shop Rick had named. Rick was already there, solid, grounded, the kind of man who made rooms feel steadier just by being in them. He listened. He didn't interrupt. When Claire handed over the USB, his jaw tightened. This is real, he said after scanning the files. Federal level real. He promised to take it to the FBI, promised protection, promised time. What he couldn't promise was safety in Portland. That's how we ended up driving west, rain pounding the windshield, the city lights fading behind us like something we were being quietly released from. The motel smelled like salt and old carpet. 2 beds, flickering neon outside the window, a door that locked. It was enough. That first night, Claire sat on the edge of her bed and cried like she'd been holding it in for months, the kind of crying that comes from the chest that leaves you empty afterwards. I can't keep running, she sobbed. I'm so tired. I sat beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She leaned into me without hesitation, like her body had already decided before her mind could catch up. We're not running, I said softly. We're waiting. The days that followed blurred together. We lived quietly, carefully. Burner phones, drawn curtains, meals eaten off paper plates. Every knock on the door sent her spiraling. Every siren made her freeze. At night, she woke shaking from nightmares. I held her until the tremors passed. Somewhere between fear and exhaustion, something else grew. Trust. It showed up in small ways. The way she started to fall asleep with her hand resting on my arm. The way she laughed softly when I read aloud in ridiculous voices just to break the tension. The way silence between us stopped feeling dangerous. 2 weeks in, someone threw a rock through the window. Glass exploded across the room. Claire screamed. I barricaded the door and called Rick. Patrol cars came. The men were gone. Just a message. We can still reach you. That night, Claire pressed her forehead against my chest and whispered, If I survive this, I'm done running. I believed her. The call came on a foggy morning. It's over, Rick said. Harlan's arrested. The whole thing's coming down. Claire dropped the phone. Then she laughed. Then she cried again. This time it sounded different. Lighter. The weeks after felt unreal. Headlines, investigations, protection lifted. Harlan's name dragged through the open air. Claire was offered money, jobs, a future she'd almost lost. And then one afternoon, she stood in my doorway with a small duffel bag and a nervous smile. I don't want to run anymore. If you'll have me. I pulled her inside without answering. We rebuilt slowly. The house, ourselves. We argued, we healed. We learned how to stay when things got hard, how to choose each other without fear or debt or obligation. Sometimes late at night when rain taps softly against the windows, I think about that door that never latched, about how close I came to fixing it. And I realize something important. Some doors are broken on purpose, because if they weren't, we'd never let the right people in.